A police officer is fired and arrested for, of all things, allegedly appearing in an OnlyFans video while on duty. We get into the details and ramifications of a situation like this with Police Sergeant Kyle Shoberg. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Former Metro Nashville police officer, 33-year-old Sean Herman, was arrested on charges of felony misconduct. Why? For allegedly appearing in a staged OnlyFans video. Yep, let me get into this one. So according to police, the Metro Nashville Police Department chief first fired Herman on May 9th after it was discovered he appeared in a recorded OnlyFans skit. I believe it was found on Reddit. And in the skit, he allegedly gropes the exposed breast of a female driver. Now, police say the video, titled "Can't Believe He Didn't Arrest Me," and apparently made by someone named Jordan, made its way online, and it was shot on the evening of April 26th in a warehouse parking lot that, by the way, Herman was on duty at the time, believed to be in his patrol uniform, supposed to be patrolling the Madison precinct, which makes it so problematic, and also what is mounting to these criminal charges. Now, in the video, which we can't show to you for legal reasons, we can describe it to you nonetheless. In the video, you see a female driver speaking to a man in her car, and he says, "Going too fast, no one listens to me." She replies, "I'm not going to get a ticket." And then she says she's going to show the officer her breasts. Okay. Next, a man dressed in police uniform steps to the side of the car, and he identifies himself as Officer Johnson. Now, you don't see his face. You only see from the mid-torso down or so. And he says, "You know why I pulled you over?" The female driver replies, "No." The officer states that she was going 65 in a 45. And when he asks for her license and registration, the female driver says she doesn't have it in this car, but says, "What if I show you these?" And then in most versions of this video that has gone online, it's blocked out, but it appears that she lifts down her shirt to show this officer her breasts. Now, the officer replies to the effect that, you can just see breasts on the internet anytime. Then she says, "Well, what if," and then the rest is bleeped out. But then you can see the officer move closer to the car. Now, in most versions of the video, it cuts off, but we have been able to see screenshots online, and based upon the allegations, the officer, allegedly Herman, allegedly touches her breast. Now, as I mentioned, he was charged with 2 counts of felony misconduct, a Class E felony that's our understanding carries 1 to 6 years in prison. This crime is defined as when a public servant commits an offense who, with the intent to obtain a benefit, intentionally or knowingly, and it could be a few things here, but for example, commits an act relating to the public servant's office or employment that constitutes an unauthorized exercise of official power, refrains from performing a duty that is imposed by law or that is clearly inherent in the nature of the public servant's office or employment, commits an act under color of office or employment that exceeds the public servant's official power, receives any benefit not otherwise authorized by law. So there's a number of different categories by which this alleged behavior could fall into. Herman's bond was set at $3,000, and he was ultimately released. So as this case makes its way through the court system, now let's talk about it. And I want to get some interesting perspective. Somebody who's been on Sidebar before, but never to talk about a case quite like this, Kyle Shoberg, sergeant with the Citrus Heights Police Department in California, co-instructor of the Patrol Survival Tactics Seminar, and host of the Shots Fired podcast. Kyle, good to see you. Not great if true, right? Not great if all of these allegations are true.
No, not great at all. It's definitely not a great look for law enforcement, but come on. I mean, who would have thought you can't appear in an OnlyFans video in full uniform on duty in your police vehicle? I mean, I guess that's just not common sense anymore.
Well, what makes it worse is it, and I think this is actually I mentioned a little bit in the law, it's the fact that he was on duty meant to do a job. He was supposed to be patrolling, right? Isn't that the most egregious part of this and why this was ultimately charges were brought?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the public expects you to be out there. You're a public servant as a police officer. And when you're out there conducting behavior like this on duty, you're being paid by the taxpayers and you're conducting this type of behavior while at work in full uniform in your patrol car. It's completely unacceptable. And of course, the agency is going to come after him. All the charges, I think, are righteous. And he's might have a new job in the adult industry film when he gets out of jail, and he can pretend to be a cop after that. But I totally agree with everything that the agency is doing to him.
Why have you ever seen anything like this? Because if we're trying to look for motivation, you could say, I'm struggling to understand if it was actually him and he was actually doing this on duty, being a part of this skit. What would the motivation be, you think?
Who knows? Probably, he thinks he's cool and he gets to be involved in this little skit in this video. And he probably didn't think that anybody was going to either recognize him or know that it was even him in the first place, except he made the mistake of showing his badge or patch in the video and somebody turned him in. Honestly, negligence, ego, you name it. But the guy had only been a cop for 3 years. So there's all sorts of probable reasons why he did this. But at the end of the day, I just don't think he was going to get caught, and I thought he thinks he could have gotten away with it.
Hey there, everybody. So I want to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring this episode of Sidebar. Always love talking about them. Now, here is the incredible thing about Morgan & Morgan, and one of the reasons why I like talking about them so much.
Hey, say something about our big wins.
You're not supposed to come on camera. The reason Morgan & Morgan, America's largest personal injury law firm, is so big, and I'm sure you can guess it, is because they win a lot. And
don't forget huge verdicts.
Yeah, they've won big verdicts. $6.8 million in New York, $26 million in Philadelphia. You see, the thing about them is they don't settle for lowball insurance offers from insurance companies, which is something.
Mention that you can submit a claim from your couch at home and on your phone.
And they've completely modernized the process by submitting your claim, talking to your legal team. It's all done straight from your smartphone. Again, that's something
with 8 clicks or less.
8 clicks or less. Yes. You can see if you have a case in just a few minutes.
1,000 lawyers. We have over 1,000 lawyers.
All right. You know what, Dan? If you really think you can do better, maybe you should just do it yourself.
What Jesse was getting at is if you've ever been injured in an accident, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. You can submit a claim in 8 clicks or less. To start your claim, just visit forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar.
You came a little too close to me. It hurt me a little bit. I'm probably actually going to have to hire you guys now, but that was well said. That was well said. We've covered it before, right? Where officers sometimes appear in sexually explicit videos or they engage in some sort of, hasn't there been cases before recently where officers have been appearing in OnlyFans videos and stuff like that? Why are we seeing this trend? There has been this before, right?
Oh, yeah, no, there has. And there's been other cops who have been fired for appearing in OnlyFans videos. The problem is when you start showing your uniform or anything of your department patches or any of your department related equipment in these videos, that's where these officers are getting fired. And in this case, it only shows a sliver of the patch, but that was enough to identify who he was and get him fired. And so, yes, there are cops who behave in this type of acts with having their own OnlyFans. You can do that. You just can't bring your department patches and equipment and things that are owned by the agency into these videos. And that's where some of these officers and deputies are getting in trouble.
Wait a minute. You mean if they're on their own time, if they're officers who appear in OnlyFans video on the weekends when they're off duty, they wouldn't necessarily be brought up on charges or not necessarily be fired?
No, not necessarily. Depending on what the acts of the videos are. I don't personally have an OnlyFans video, so I don't watch OnlyFans. But,
right.
Some of the things conducts that cops do off duty are well within their rights. Now, depending on what you're doing and how much you're showing, and, that could fall under conduct of unbecoming, which we all fall under as police officers. So depending on how far they take it, but surely once you start wearing your uniform and showing patches and all that stuff, then that for sure is a done deal. And I guarantee you, every department's policy is you are not allowed to show those things on video.
And to be clear, right, these are allegations at this point, and we don't love talking about the idea of officers behaving badly or inappropriately or improperly. But whenever I talk to law enforcement about cases like this, and I'm curious your perspective, they always say it's important to highlight it because it's important to pick out the bad ones to show you how important it is for the work that the ones that were doing the right work do, right? And so for listening to something like this, if the allegations are true, it kind of puts a little bit of a stain on the work that you are doing and the work that your colleagues have been doing and that one law enforcement does across the country, right?
Oh, of course. Anytime you have a cop being arrested for, it doesn't matter what it is, it's always going to leave a stain on the profession, the agency. Even when things go right, we hear about those things. And sometimes even when cops are doing great things every single day, a lot of those things don't get highlighted or they get glossed over. You bring misconduct from an officer onto the table or an officer getting arrested. Those are the things that are going to get highlighted and be blasted all over the media and on the news. And that's what people start to think that's what the profession is. And I can honestly tell you that's less than 1% of the profession out there. So it's an embarrassment to the profession. And, unfortunately, stuff like that will continue to happen. And we have to do our best as law enforcement to show the public that's not who we are. That's not what we do and the type of behavior that we involve ourselves in.
And I have to be honest, because we have seen cases before where officers actually do what he was pretending to do, right? There were officers who were accused of accepting sexual favors so that people can get out of traffic tickets or get out of trouble. And the fact that if this is Herman, if this is actually him, he's almost making light of that, which is a very serious thing that happens. That's also, I think, very, very problematic.
Yeah, I think this guy's in a world of hurt. And you're right, these are all allegations. But should they be true and he is found guilty, then, it's going to be a huge stain on law enforcement. It'll get brought back up again. And, you'll still have officers making these same mistakes. So, I think he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But I agree with you.
Let me ask you about this. So we've taken a look at Herman's history. And according to News Channel 5, Nashville, Herman's personnel records indicate or include a series of car crashes, and there are claims of sexual harassment. In fact, they report that last year, Herman signed a last chance agreement to stay on the force after he allegedly created, quote, an offensive work environment for a coworker through sexual comments and actions, namely apparently sexually propositioning a coworker through text messages and asking her to go through her phone for nudes. In fact, there was one text message that he allegedly sent this woman that reads, "You're a cool chick, just a hot one, ha ha ha, so couldn't help wanting to see you naked." He also allegedly showed this female officer and another officer a nude photo of a woman he had claimed was his girlfriend. Herman also allegedly admitted to having an OnlyFans account where he had posted at least one nude photo of himself. He was suspended for 10 days for violating the police department policy there. In light of those developments, Kyle, I guess the questions are, A, are you surprised that he was only suspended for 10 days? And I believe it just came out of his vacation time. And B, should we not be that surprised that this is what he's being accused of now?
Oh, absolutely not. I think if the agency knows this behavior from this individual, they kept him employed. And then to find out that he was on that OnlyFans video, I'm not shocked by that at all. He should have been fired a long time ago. I mean, sending text messages like that to coworkers, that's completely inappropriate. It's sexual harassment. That guy should have been fired a long time ago. And the fact that he only has 3 years on the job, that's even more concerning. So, look, I know a lot of agencies out there are very short-staffed. We're all short-handed. But you've got to weed out people like that. They do not deserve to be wearing the badge and being a public servant. The guy should have been fired a long time ago.
Let me get to that in 1 second. But before I do, what is a last chance agreement? Have you ever heard of that before?
I have never heard of that before. So that's actually news to me. I don't know what a last chance agreement is. But what I can say is even without that last chance agreement, being involved in what he's being alleged of doing would have got him fired anyway. So whether he had that last chance agreement or not, he probably would have been let loose regardless. But I've never heard of that in my entire career.
You make a really interesting point. You look, there's no surprise here that there is a problem with recruitment in law enforcement across the country. And like you said, there's definitely personnel issues. I wonder, sometimes the defense for this could be, or that the benefit, I mentioned one of the things is a benefit that was received. That's a part of these charges. The defense could be, look, the benefit that he received as a result of being a part of this video was trivial. It was incidental to his professional conduct. No one was harmed. There was no substantial risk. And in light of what could be an issue with trying to replace him or replace others on the force, is it that really big of a deal? Does he have to be brought up on charges for this? Can you just let it slide? What would you say to that?
Well, most agencies have a policy. If you're going to receive any type of financial gain by doing any type of outside employment, which I would consider what he was doing in outside employment. I mean, he was gaining something by working with these folks. You would have to have permission from your chief or sheriff to do those things. But the fact that he was involved in that type of behavior on duty, I'm sorry. I just feel that it's going to warrant him being terminated regardless. And any officer that involves themselves in that type of behavior on duty in full uniform is going to warrant you to lose your job. And in this case, get charges pressed against you.
So in other words, even if there's shortages in law enforcement, these are not the kind of people we want protecting and serving.
Oh, absolutely not. I would rather go out on patrol with short-staffed, minimum quality cops than an officer like this who's going to abuse his time to engage himself in this type of manner on duty. I'm sorry, I would rather go shorthanded than be working with an individual like this.
Well, like I said before, it's important to highlight these stories because when you pick out the bad ones or the alleged bad actors, it just further highlights all the great work that the best officers across this country do, like Kyle Shoberg. Thank you so much for coming on, sir. And again, you could check out his podcast, Shots Fired. Encourage everybody to check it out. Kyle, always good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely, Jesse. Always a pleasure to jump on with you. Thank you very much.
You got it. All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.